kit by Bishop Dag Heward-Mills Ministries. Discover how God can change your life forever.
Does things based on the wind and the anointing. I'm talking about anointed people. I'm talking about anointed people. I'm talking about people with anointing, with the Spirit. Bible says, these are they. The King James says, having not the Spirit, but the American says, devoid of the Spirit. He's talking about Christians, devoid of the Spirit. That is, they are devoid of the anointing, which separate themselves. So there are many of us who are devoid of the anointing. But a man of the anointing suddenly feels. And he says, how do you know what to do now? Said, because I can feel. He said, the wind, as the wind blows, where it wishes. And you don't know where it's coming from or how it is going. But you know the wind is blowing. How do you know? What do you see? What can you physically determine? You just know. It's time for miracles. It's time to pray for somebody. It's time to pour oil on someone. That's why one day somebody met me out here with a bottle of oil. He said, please anoint me. I said, no, I don't feel the anointing. This is not a time. Even when you preach, you get to a point where you can feel something moves. Then how did you know? Is it because it was 10 to 8 or it was 7:30? The wind, you just... and you see, those of you who are too logical, you shouldn't have come this evening, because this type of message will not go down well with your type. Because if you are a doctor and you are operating on somebody, you know it's time to give oxygen. You know it's time to give this drug. You know it's time to administer 3 times a day. You know it's time. But how do I know that it's time to lay hands on Randy? How do I know time? I can know by the time, but I can also know by the Spirit. And people will always wonder, so how do you know that it's time to do this? How do you know that it's time to have a crusade? How do you know? I'm talking about anointed men. May you, pastors, may you be anointed. May you have the feelings. Sit down, let me tell you. Papa Hagin said something. He said something. He said, no one was ever sick in his church without him knowing. And he said he never visited anybody. He could feel it by word of knowledge. Yeah, he knew people were not well. He knew when something was happening. He said whilst he was the pastor, no one died in the church. For 12 years he was the pastor. You couldn't die. I'm talking about senior anointings that are being used to pastor the church. How many want such anointings? Yeah. I want to be anointed and to feel. These days I feel him all over me. And you see, there's a difference between somebody who is devoid of the Spirit and no the Spirit is absent. You dear, you walk by, the watch is present, but the Spirit is absent. And so when you see people who say, I feel God's presence, you look at them and say, But we were all here this afternoon. We smell something like rain. We feel an atmosphere of rain. And it was true. It wasn't untrue. It was true. And truly, the rain came. Even when you come here now, the type of wind we feel, we have a certain cool feeling. You understand? Just based on the feeling that you have, based on the type of wind, you have an idea of the mood. You have an idea of what is going on, and you flow by the wind. The wind. I'm talking about anointed men. How many want to join anointed men? How come you don't feel anything, but you were able to have sexual feelings? How come when it comes to things of the spirit, you don't feel anything? But you were able to have sexual feelings and all kinds of feelings. You fall in love with somebody. Fall in love with somebody's husband. One time, Pastor Eddie was leading the praises and worship. And a young lady came to the front after. And she talked to my wife. And she said that the young man who was leading the praise and worship, who is he? I said, oh, he's Reverend Eddie. And she asked, is he married? And he said, oh, yes. And she said, oh, Oh no. Oh no. It's like you are watching the ministration and you are having all kinds of feelings. Hey. But when it comes to the spirit, you sit there and you look devoid of the spirit, having no feelings, having no ability to even feel the air of the spirit. You are just sensual. These are they who are sensual, having not the spirit. Your sexual organs are developed, but your spiritual organs are undeveloped. They are pre-puberty spiritual organs. Some are even menopausal, spiritual menopause. No, you see, some people come to church. One day, a man came to our church and he said, are you having an afternoon jump or what? We were dancing and praising. He said, I don't, afternoon jump. He called our church an afternoon jump. That is, we are jumping and singing and dancing. And such people, they make themselves so distinguished, so diplomatic, and yet you see them having girlfriends, one after the other. They are able to remove their clothes and jump around like frogs. And when they come to the church and we are praising God, they say we are having an afternoon jump. An afternoon jump. Hey!